When Ron Paul was firing every revolver in Ben Bernanke's direction, there was a lot of people cheering down here.
There's a dollar crisis out there, and people's money is being stolen. People who have saved, they're being robbed. I mean, if you have devaluation of the dollar at 10%, people have been robbed of 10%. But how can you pursue this policy without addressing the subject that somebody's losing their wealth because of a weaker dollar, and it's going to lead to higher interest rates and a weaker economy?
Joining me now is the aforementioned presidential candidate, Texas Congressman, Mr. Ron Paul. Mr. Paul, welcome back to the program, sir. Seldom have I seen such a licking applied to a Fed chief, and I have been around a while. I see you grinning. Let me just ask you, first of all, what was the major part of your beef with Ben Bernanke?
Well, my big beef is that nobody looks at the cause of our problems, and the cause comes from the Federal Reserve creating too much credit and distorting the markets.
What specifically would you like to see Mr. Bernanke do right now?
Well, I said he was between the rock and a hard place, and he is. That nobody, what he does is going to be wrong because we need a new monetary system. But in the meantime, you know, if he inflates, he destroys the value of the dollar. It destroys the value of the dollar. We get inflation. We get a weak economy. So there is no easy answer. But we certainly have to talk about the causes and move away from this monetary system. If anything, he should be more careful with the amount of new money he creates out of thin air, because eventually this will just lead to loss of confidence in the dollar on the international exchange market.
Let me ask you, in terms of a new monetary system, and without question, you're the only presidential candidate delving into these issues, which are, of course, of great interest to investors everywhere. What kind of new monetary system would you like to see? Do you want the dollar to be gold-backed again? Would you like to go back to fixed exchange rates? Give us a sense of where you'd like to go.
Well, we should follow the law, and the law is the Constitution. The Constitution said only gold and silver should be legal tender. We don't really have clear authority to have a central bank. Jefferson and Jackson got rid of a national bank because they didn't like it. We've only had a central bank for a relatively short period of time, but we can't get rid of the Fed in a day or a week. But we could legalize competing currencies. I mean, we compete with currencies around the world all the time, but why can't we have gold and silver competing as a currency and let people save? Legalize the competition. Let gold and silver circulate as true money. Take off capital gains taxes and sales taxes. Let people settle their disputes in a new currency. We have parallel currencies around the world that fluctuate every single minute of the day in value. We could have a domestic competing currency, and people who want to save in gold bonds instead of government bonds.
Are you going to make that part of your plank, part of your argument, the competing currency, which I think, sirs, correct me if I'm wrong, was raised years ago by Friedrich Hayek? I think he raised that, Nobel Prize winner. You're going to make this part of your campaign?
I have in the past, and I will continue to do it. Hayek actually would allow the marketplace to develop the competing currencies, and I think that's not a bad idea either. So I sort of support the Hayekian viewpoint, but even with the government involved, they could change the tax laws and allow the competing currency to develop more smoothly.
Am I the only interviewer with you, sir, who has raised Friedrich Hayek's name?
No, but it's good to hear his name. It's very rare that anybody does. But I have to say that the road to serfdom had a lot of influence on me in my early years.
Indeed, the Constitution of Liberty as well for me. On his monetary opinions, I want to give you the first whack because I found them very interesting.
They're fantastic. I mean, Larry, just step back and realize how amazing it is. We have not had a presidential candidate who talked about free markets, who talked about monetary reform, who talked about tax reform the way Ron Paul does since Steve Forbes ran for president. Bravo, bravissimo, go Ron Paul.
Gold and silver is legal tender. Well, I think that's sensible. I don't agree about abolishing the central bank, but competing currencies on deposit, why not? These things have come up in the past. Those are pretty good ideas, aren't they?
Well, you sort of have competing currencies now. People can easily go in and out of currencies. But the key thing is to tie the dollar to a price range for gold. The dollar is solid. Let the other currencies in the world go all over the parking lot. Well, they'll come to us because we have a rock-solid currency, and that'll be good for the economy and good for the global economy as well. Have the dollar as good as gold.